We're gabbing with Greenwood. Greenwood Gab. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Greenwood Gab. I'm Sarah Reynolds.
And I'm Natalie Browning.
And today we get to hear a lot more from Natalie because we're going to talk about a project she's been working on a lot for this past year. And Natalie, you want to tell us a little bit about it before we jump into the interview?
I don't know if any of our listeners have noticed, but we've been doing a lot of programming this past year, all along the lines of well-being. All of those programs were on that theme because they were grant funded. So we did get a grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services, so IMLS, from the American Rescue Plan to fund all of those well-being programs. So that was a partnership between the library and CAPS, Counseling and Psychological Services. Today's episode is going to be all about that grant, and we have my co-director here with us, Dr. Maureen Walls-McKay, the director of CAPS and the dean of well-being, to talk all about that grant.
I can't wait to learn more from both you and Dr. Walls-McKay. Now we're here with our very own Natalie Browning and Dr. Maureen Walls-McKay, who are going to talk to us today a little bit about a really exciting grant project that we've been working on for the last year. Maureen, would you like to introduce yourself to our podcast listeners?
Absolutely. I am Maureen Walls-McKay, and I serve as Dean of Wellbeing here at Longwood University.
And would you like to share a fun fact about yourself?
Absolutely. Let me see. Okay, so I tend to think about things I've never done when I think about fun facts. So I've never eaten pie in my life. And my mom, back in our small town in Western Pennsylvania, she was known for pies. Like, she made beautiful pies. And as you know, my husband is a chef. He makes wonderful pies. I've never eaten a slice of pie. And Natalie's face captures. Yes. Right. Also, I've never watched Star Trek or Star Wars. So some of these all-American things I just don't do.
I will say I'm not a fan of pie. I don't really like the fruity desserts, but I've tried them. As someone who's like usually the pickiest eater in the room, that's good to know.
I know apple pie with cinnamon ice cream is one of my favorite desserts of all time. Would one of you like to share kind of the background of how this all started? Where did the idea for this partnership come from?
So I think it started with COVID. We were talking about reopening campus and the library specifically, and how we could get patrons, so students and community patrons, back into the library after COVID. I work closely with student affairs, so I decided I wanted to work with CAPS, Counseling and Psychological Services, which Maureen is in charge of. So we started meeting on Zoom to kind of brainstorm some ideas to get people back into the library. And the idea we kind of landed on was hobby-based. So we had talked about maybe getting knitting needles and stuff like that for the library's collection. But then after that initial idea, this grant opportunity came up as part of the American Rescue Plan through the Institute of Museum and Library Services that would help libraries address community needs exacerbated by COVID-19. And as part of this grant, you couldn't use the funds for adding things to library collections. So we pivoted a little bit and decided to do well-being-based programming instead. So we kept that knitting, crocheting idea and the idea for journaling and doing puzzles, but we just made separate programs for those things instead and just provided all of the materials for those hobby-based well-being programs.
So, Maureen, what made you want to partner with the library on a programming like this?
Yeah, so Natalie reached out to me, and I was just really excited to partner with the library. The library does amazing things, so who doesn't want to join in on an offer? And just being able to really be intentional about the programs and thinking about students during COVID and needing and wanting to be connected and reconnected and in person. It was just a really great opportunity and well-timed, very much needed. And I think the feedback that we received from participants really validated that that need was there and that it was appreciated.
Would you like to share with us some of those program ideas? You mentioned crocheting and puzzles. So how did those things come about?
Like I mentioned, we had talked about initially some ideas for the types of hobbies that had stuff that goes with them. That's why we had talked about knitting and maybe getting like knitting kits. We kind of built off of that idea once we switched to this programming model. And then we also realized if we were going to do separate programs for each hobby, we needed people to facilitate those programs. So we switched from knitting to crocheting because Sarah was our facilitator for that program. And she thought crocheting might be a little easier for participants to learn in just the one session than knitting. And then we decided to do a journaling workshop that we knew we could get one of the English professors to teach for us. And then we peppered in some workshops with CAPS psychologists for strategies for resilience and mindfulness. And then also a big part of the grant, since this was grant funded and we knew we would have some extra money to play around with, we also wrote in author talks for our grant application. So we were able to get 2 wonderful authors to do presentations for us. In the process of applying for the grant, we just wrote like author talk. Like we didn't really know who we were going to be able to get. And we were able to get Dr. Renee Kessler and Dr. Daryl Van Tongeren and Sarah Showalter Van Tongeren to talk about their books, Unflappable by Renee Kessler and then Finding Meaning in Suffering by the Van Tongeren.
And I really, just from a mental health perspective, I so appreciated the puzzles and the crocheting and the journaling. Research shows that Americans have really gotten away from kind of hand-mind, that connection. And really, research has shown that depression and anxiety both decrease when we produce things with our hands, whether it's for work or for a hobby. So it's just so important. And I think about my own life. What do I do? Like having something productive, whether it's cooking or writing or putting puzzles together, it matters in terms of our mental and emotional well-being.
And also, I think we'd be remiss not to talk about 2 other programs that I realized I just missed. So the one, speaking of working with your hands, was the gardening workshop that we were able to do. You create a caprese container garden is what we ended up calling it. So we had another one of our librarians, Jennifer Beach, teach that program, and we planted tomato and basil plants that we were able, again, to provide all the materials for and have the participants walk away with their plants that they were going to grow. I think the only other program was our partnership with the Moten Museum. Whenever we talk about well-being, we also have to think about our community. So we like to partner with the Moten. So we had a program titled Apples and Oranges, The Importance of Well-Being in Times of Educational Strife. So in that program, we compared the school closings to the closings during COVID.
And really, when I think about this grant, I think about the collaborations, that Natalie reached out to CAPS. I love that. And then that we were able to partner with Moten, our colleagues there and the experts, and the English professor and the psychologist in CAPS and you. It's just those relationships that are here at Longwood that are so meaningful, and then sharing that knowledge with the broader community.
Maureen, you mentioned psychologists in CAPS, so we did also offer some programming just about mindfulness and some other techniques that can help people when they're dealing with stress and anxiety. Would you like to talk a little bit about those programs too?
Yeah, so Dr. Jenny Ritalik took the lead on those programs and talked about general well-being and things that we all can do in our daily life. Slowing down, being mindful, even strategies like emotion regulation when our emotions get a little strong or stronger than what is healthy. She taught us that eating a really strong candy that's very sour can kind of distract our body and our mind enough so that our emotions can calm down, or putting an ice pack on our forehead when emotions get strong. Just little and not so little strategies that are really effective.
And you mentioned we had some author talks. Would either one of you like to tell us a little bit more about how you picked the authors that you asked to come and what they shared?
Yeah, so Dr. Renee Kessler is a retired professor here at Longwood University. She currently lives in Colorado, and she's now written 2 books. She is an adventurer and an influencer, and she does a lot of outdoor education and leads programs. She wrote a book, Unflappable, and really ties in her love of climbing mountains with really climbing any summit. We all have goals that we want to reach. So her book guides people through the process of reaching your personal summit, whatever it might be, whether it's career related or relationship related. So she gave a wonderful talk on April 7th here on our beautiful campus and just did a great job with that talk. And then two professionals, Daryl and Sarah, I was introduced through a webinar that I attended during COVID. And they're a married couple that have written a book together. And their message is about suffering and the courage that it takes to really almost kind of embrace life and all aspects of life, even the really, really difficult parts of life. And knowing that that suffering is tolerable, we can tolerate it, and that it has deep meaning if we give it the attention it deserves. I think we oftentimes, as humans, and it makes total sense to me, we kind of try to push our suffering and our hurt aside and maybe try to avoid it or numb it in some way. And Daryl and Sarah are really encouraging us to kind of face our suffering more head on. And it's hard. It's difficult. It's a challenge, but it can result in a more deep life. So both talks really talked about a deeper understanding of this life that we're given and the adventure that's there and the hurt that's there, and it all matters.
And because of the grant, we were actually able to hand out free copies of the books at the events too, which was great. So people who came to the talk, like, not only did they get to gain the knowledge from the presenter, they also got to leave with a copy of the book so they could read more into it themselves.
You mentioned we've gotten feedback on some of our programs. Would you like to share how you gathered that feedback and what you're hearing based on people's experiences with these programs?
Well, we certainly have gotten some anecdotal feedback, but most of it has come from a survey that we put together. Again, all of these programs were grant funded, so one of the grant requirements was that we do this follow-up survey with our participants. So we asked them questions about how they heard about the programming and then questions relating to their anxiety. So we asked them about their stress and anxiety levels because of the pandemic. And then we asked them if they felt that the programs had helped their stress and anxiety. And the majority of them strongly agreed. We didn't get any disagrees for the programming helping anxiety. We did have a couple people say that they didn't have an increase in stress and anxiety because of the pandemic, but the majority of people did find that increase in stress. So it was helpful to know, like Maureen mentioned at the beginning, our programs actually were helping people. And then also on the survey, people could leave comment. We got some great feedback. We had community members fill out the survey, students of different years, and then we had faculty and staff.
For example, a first-year student wrote, "This program helped me with my anxiety and to get out and be social." And that just hits all the marks because we really, through this grant, really wanted people to be reconnected and to be more aware of the anxiety and then to be aware of some strategies that would be helpful when they're feeling anxious.
There was a class that did a lot of journaling, and our first journaling program just happened to coincide with that class time. So the professor reached out to me and asked if she could bring her whole class to the program, and we said absolutely. So it was great that that lined up that way, and she was already trying to do these well-being journaling prompts with her class, and they were able to come and do the program with us. That was great.
That sparked my memory. One day I was in D Hall waiting on my food being prepared, and I just happened to start talking to a student next to me, and I learned that she lives in Colorado. And I said, "Oh my goodness, my good friend, Dr. Renee Kessler, lives in Colorado." And so we got talking, and they live literally miles, just a few miles away from each other. So I said, "Oh my goodness, you must come to see Dr. Kessler when she comes back to Longwood." And I emailed her to remind her about this program. And didn't she come? And she brought her teammates and her coach. And then this past summer, Brooke and Renee did a couple hikes together in Colorado. So they've stayed in touch. And again, those connections, I think that's the power of these grant opportunities and these programming opportunities. Is just, I got pictures from their hikes. Renee sent me pictures of Brooke hiking with her and on these 2 hikes they did together. And I'm sure, I would expect they're going to stay in touch.
Do you see potential partnerships for the future?
I definitely see a continued partnership. We won't be able to do these things at this level anymore. We won't be able to do these programs and provide all of the yarn for the crocheting and the soil and pots and stuff for a gardening program. But definitely we could still do partnerships. The talks, I think, were well attended. So it wasn't always the free stuff that was drawing people in. I think it really was that they just needed some help with their stress and anxiety.
And a space. I think offering the space and the opportunity. I feel that students and community members and faculty and staff would gather for crocheting and knitting if there was a space provided and a consistent time. Just come and hang out together while you're crafting or knitting knitting or crocheting, I think that would be a great collaboration between the library and CAPS. I'm thinking also of other collaborations that are persisting. I reached out a couple years ago to your dean of the library and talked about the Luminette glasses that are for seasonal affective disorder. And it's been shown now that the glasses help even with most anybody. They're just glasses that you put on like reading glasses. They have the light. So those are now in the library and have been, I think, 2 pair any faculty, staff, or student can check out to use. I think there are just endless opportunities for continued collaboration.
I'm sure we will miss each other. For the grant, we've had to schedule monthly meetings.
That's right.
So we'll schedule a meeting and we'll talk about more partnerships.
That's right.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about this partnership, about the grant, about any of the activities, anything else that you've thought of as we've been chatting?
Sure. So Maureen and I will be presenting a poster at the Virginia Library Association conference. We're excited about that. We are going to share these ideas with other Virginia librarians. So hopefully we can encourage some of them to do similar programming. I think a lot of this can translate regardless of the funding you had. Like Maureen said, some of it is just providing a space. So the title of our poster is Well-Being in the Heart of Campus, How a Librarian and the Dean of Wellbeing Helped the Community Heal. So I think that's giving us a lot of credit. But I think based on the feedback we got, I think it's safe to say we helped at least some of the community heal. Also, I don't think we said, it's on all of our advertising and it's just in my head, so I don't know if I said it or not. But the title of the grant was Well-Being in the Heart of Campus, Community Connections at Greenwood Library. We were all about connections, which I think we've said we definitely did.
You know, learning about experts within our community like Kelly Acevedo and Lewis Gold. They both presented at the program that was held at the Moten. And I just left that program in awe. Actually, I left the program, went home, walked my dog, and listened to the program. I listened to the entire program again, even though I was there. But I just was so amazed at their commitment to students' well-being, just amazed at what our community does. You know, I think that's another benefit to a grant like this, is it really increases awareness of what is being done in our communities.
That program specifically is a good example. The grant is part of the American Rescue Plan, so it's about, returning to society after COVID, but we still had to pivot a lot because COVID is not over. One of our presenters on that panel had to be with us via Zoom. And we've had to pivot a few of our other programs. Like we did in-person programming, but everybody was wearing masks. Again, an example of how COVID has affected us and how we still need programs like this.
And really, Kanan Townsend was just a delight to work with on that program. He has great skill in brainstorming ideas and connecting with community members, and he facilitated that program as well and did a great job.
Thank you both so much for sharing this amazing opportunity we've had over the past year to partner and provide needed programming. Especially, I think a lot of our students have spent so much of the past couple of years of their lives online for school and for those sorts of things. So getting them back together in person, even if it means, having to wear a mask or that sort of thing, it's been a positive experience.
Thanks for having me. And thank you for not trying to convince me to eat pie. I get bribed. I get all kinds of pressure to try pie. And you did not do any of that.
I will say, I think it's kind of ironic that we have this graphic up on the screen with some notes on it that has a pie chart on it.
I'm not opposed to pie charts.
Maureen likes pie charts, but not pie. Well, it was a great conversation with Natalie and Maureen.
It's been a great partnership. We are looking forward to more partnerships with CAPS in the future.
And if you have any ideas for partnerships or programming that you think the library should get involved with, please let us know.
Reach out to us on social media. That's also where we've been posting about all of our grant programs on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram as Greenwood Library, and Greenwood LibLU on Twitter. Was that all of them? I think that was all of them. We're also on YouTube.
And we're on YouTube.
At Greenwood Library.
We're always looking for new and innovative ways to make the library a place that's not just about the serious study and all of that, which is very important and we're here for, but the library also, as our dean likes to say, is the beating heart of campus. So we want to make sure that we are addressing the needs of students, both academically and in a more social way.
And we definitely leaned into that with the title of our grant, Well-Being in the Heart of Campus. We try to have the library be a fun place.
Tons of fun.
Tons of fun and supporting your well-being, as well as your academic well-being.
All the
personal
well-being.
and academic.
Emotional, social, academic, all of it.
That's what we're here for.
There's nothing that we won't do for you. Now I have
Before we
Bryan
make-
Adams going through my head. I do it for you.
On that note, before we make any more promises that may be hard to keep, let's just say, have a great.
Have a great.
When there's a microphone in front of me, I can't talk normally. I'm always like, hello. But I'll try to be normal as I can be.